I don't think it's really just about changing the culture inside the company. You need to change the culture of the industry.
Working for Audi, people assume that we want people in their cars all the time. But here in the US, Audi's advocating for walkable communities, for communities that will allow us to thrive, to engage with the environment. You can't really engage if you're just sitting in your vehicle all the time.
How have humans lived with nature for thousands of years in a very different way to this understanding of progress that inspired the book? And it takes this idea of radical indigenism. That was an idea from a Cherokee professor, Eva Marie Groot, who said that indigenous nations should really, in the contemporary context, be looking at mythology and to rethink how we can deal with some of our most pressing issues and really think of new knowledge. How do we create new knowledge?
When I want to recenter myself, I remove all technology from my life to reflect on this role. How do we fuse these two things together? Where have you yourself applied these principles? Do you have any examples?
On the cover of the book is this incredible technology called the Living Root Bridges. And it's a community that lives in northeast India. They're in the area that has the highest rainfall on Earth. And when the monsoon rains come, it becomes all these islands. And so it's just flooded. And what they've developed is a system called a living bridge, which they grow across the stream so they can walk in between villages. So I think one way that we can start to think about how these technologies can be applied, especially in the built environment and urban context, is to really think about what is the DNA of that technology.
There is this resistance to change, right? There's incumbent interests that want to keep things the way they are, to keep the status quo. I think this is the challenge. How do we take advantage of the sense of urgency, make sure that the organizations we work with, in my case, Audi, really internalizes the sense of urgency to make the changes quickly, because we don't have 20 years. And the hope is, and this is, I think, again, what you and I are trying to do, how do we engage that conversation and bring the right people into it to hit the pause button and say, wait a minute.
That's what I mean about that big priority shift that has to happen within companies, to reprioritize that sort of foundational understanding of optimization and fast growth.
And do you think like our job is to help these organizations reassess their relationship with this ecosystem?
If you want to have living systems and an earth that is symbiotic between our living material technologies and our new innovations, we need to really think of a new framework or a theoretical framework about how policy and code and legislation can actually deal with the idea that life is uncontrolled.
We have to propagate those values through the entire supply chain, right? It can't just be the end product, it has to be where we source materials for everything. And I think in the electric vehicle space, this has been a point of focus for a lot of people. What about the batteries? Where does the cobalt come from, for example? Or how are you obtaining lithium?
Or not just today, like in 10 years' time.
Exactly.
If we start to look at how ecosystems work, there is nothing called waste. There's a residue that gets taken up and that life form transitioned into something else and an energy for something else. So if we start to sort of even remove that idea of waste from the way we speak and the way we think about systems and products, and we start to use a word like residue and resource.
And I think it's empowering, right? To know that the decisions we're making right now can and should be considered, not just next year, not just next quarter, certainly, as many businesses are apt to do, but 5, 10, 100, 1,000 years down the road.
And we need to slow down. And there's this movement called slowballization. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I've heard of it.
But really this understanding that we need to become more regionalized. We need to really work within the systems that we have in the places that we are. And that's intelligent and that's resilient and sustainable, because you can actually start to understand your environmental impact.